and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm your DIY guillotine, Mike.
Hi, it's Jill.
And we are back, and it's been a while for one of these. It's a Patreon pick. Firstly, we'll just automatically shout out James Quinn, who has been a faithful patron for quite a while now, and our episode this evening was picked by him. So before we get into all that, we're gonna, explain. If you're a new listener, you're like, what the hell's going on here? Although you guys are smart, you're listening to us, so I'm hoping that you're like, man, I don't know how smart you are if you're listening to us, but you probably get the idea with Patreon pick. So basically, if you are a member of our Patreon at our Horror Hound level, which is $5 and up, after 6 months, I believe, you get to pick a movie we review. And then when we get a chance, we slate it in and we do it, and it actually works out because it's like a bonus episode, so it's like an extra episode that's scheduled on a week we normally don't release. So yeah, James had a pick, and he picked 2010's I Saw the Devil, and we did ask him to write us a blurb and let us know why he chose this, and I will let you know what he said. So James said, after seeing Old Boy, I went on a Korean movie binge. As soon as I'd seen that Choi Min-sik was in this, I thought I would check it out. This was before the days of IMDb, when people actually watched movies and decided for themselves. I love that.
I mean,
savage.
And he said, I fucking loved it. Then last year, I got my wife to watch it, and I enjoyed it like it was my first time seeing it. The performances are great, the story is well done, and the pacing is non-stop. The violence also feels extremely real, but without being stupid. I also want to give thanks to the whole crew on the pod for giving us great content week in, week out, and being honest with their film reviews. Can't wait to hear more.
So nice.
So nice.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and supporting. We love it. We love you guys.
You know the key to our heart, which is, brag about us at the end. We just love it. But yeah, so let's get into the trailer. And then we're going to be back for the synopsis and first experiences for I Saw the Devil. So that was the trailer for 2010's I Saw the Devil, directed by Kim Ji-woon and written by Kim Ji-woon and Park Hyun-jun, and the synopsis is as follows. Kai-in Chul is a dangerous psychopath who kills for pleasure. Soo-hoon, a top-secret agent, decides to track down the murderer himself. He promises himself that he will do everything in his power to take vengeance against the killer, even if it means that he must become a monster himself. Now, before we get in the first experiences, I just want to take this moment for everyone to clap. I didn't murder the names too badly. So
No, you did great, actually. I'm impressed.
I think if I read them fast and people don't notice, then hopefully they're listening to it at a higher speed than 1 speed on their podcast listener. It just zooms by and they don't notice.
I mean, you're right, and I am proud of you, but also the bar is like underground.
Yeah, my bar is not high. And, this is probably another reason, how the sausage is made. We're recording this after we're doing a main episode. So there is no Colton on this episode. And I think we're now just fully convinced that this was him purposefully making me read these names for the comedy of it all.
Oh, yeah.
Just set me up. So, yeah, our first time experience. Is this our first time seeing this? Or, are we a Korean horror movie fanatic? Jill, is this your first time seeing this?
This is my first time seeing this. I had heard of it before, but I actually didn't realize that A, it was a Korean movie, and B, I thought it would have something like kind of supernatural about it. So yeah, this completely took me by surprise, but I actually know a lot of people who have watched this movie and really like this movie. So I think it kind of has maybe like a cult following. But yeah, my first time. Mike, how about yourself?
Same. I know of the director, and one of his movies, oh my god, Tale of Two Sisters, has been on my list forever, like since the 2000s, to watch, and just for whatever reason never got around to. And then, when this popped up as our pick and I looked it up, I was like, oh my god, it's the same guy. So that was cool, because I was like, okay, if I like this, then I'll definitely like speed up the process of watching Tale of Two Sisters, which I'm gonna do now because I enjoyed this. So yeah, but I'd never seen it before it got picked for us. And again, the Patreon picks have like roundly been really good, and all stuff that I haven't seen. So bravo. Ro, what about you?
Yeah, no, I'd never seen this. Kind of like Jill, I've heard of it. I've seen it, pop up on streaming services and seen it pop up on people's letterboxes. And, unfortunately, it really seems like most of the time it's the Patreon picks that pick like the foreign horror films, and then we always love them or whatever. Yeah. And I always like enjoy foreign horror. I don't know why I don't seek it out enough myself. But yeah, I'd never seen this. I wasn't familiar with the director or anything. So yeah, I was excited to dive into it. Unfortunately, where I don't live in Newfoundland anymore, Trevor and Willow were always my gateway into this, because when we would do movie nights, they would usually pick like Korean or Japanese, like something they knew that, plain old white bread Rowan would not be watching. So they're like, hey, let me culture
Have
you.
Some culture.
Yeah. So yeah, I've never seen this before. So with that, let's get into the dismemberments of it all. Let's get in the review. I Saw the Devil. I mean, can we just start with the opening? Like right out the gate, we're getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2010s. I thought, especially what we kind of on the main show have been talking about watching recently, like, obviously I was like, oh, we're getting in like some more brutal, I was thinking about New French Extremity and just like brutal violence and stuff, which, I don't want to say similar to the French, because anything Korean, anything, I'm thinking other, foreign horror films, like stuff like Ichi the Killer, like, they are usually a little more brutal than American films. But yeah, this intro just right off the bat, like super horrific, gruesome. Yeah, like how did you guys feel watching this?
Oh, it's a cold open for the books. Wouldn't you say, Jill?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite parts of the movie, I think. Just like the snow and like driving in the night with snow kind of like set the tone. And I just love that scene where, the girl who's driving her car, she has like the white fluffy like steering wheel cover, and she's wearing like all white and white.
I was trying to figure out if her window was open and that was snow. Like if her window was busted out or something. And I was like, oh, wait, no, she's just like posh and has one of those fuzzy covers on her. So that's like great indication of like her kind of class status.
I loved it, and I love when it was covered in blood afterwards, and
Yeah.
you have the camera just like slowly panning over that. I thought that was really effective, and also just when she's there on the side of the road and, you know, on the phone with her partner or whatever, waiting for the tow truck, and you have this kind of creepy man come over, and you just know something really bad's going to happen when you see him leave, kind of pissed off. And I don't know, I thought it was very tense, very scary, and set the tone for the whole movie because it's very realistic and very gruesome.
Yeah, I do love a good, like, creepy cold open. And to me, this kind of rivals, like, a lot of the really good ones, like, almost up to, like, Scream level of, like, holy shit, except it just, like, took it really far. And I thought it was so beautifully shot and lit. Like, the whole movie is, that's one of the things that I like about this movie, is that it's gorgeous. Like, it looks so good. The lighting is great. The colors are great. Like you said, the snow and like the blood. And it was just like delectable in terms of like how gorgeous it looked, which obviously makes the like carnage that is about to happen even more brutally shocking. But yeah, it's like literally it's an opener for the books, I think, like 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it rivals up there with like great openings, like so brutal. And it was one of those openings where like as it's going on, I kept being like, because I didn't read a synopsis, I didn't do anything. I just went into this like,
I was totally blind too. Yeah.
So I kept being like, I wonder, like, okay, like when's this gonna end? Like when are they gonna stop it and cut to something else? Like, and it just like keeps going and going, and I'm like, oh wait a second, like this is this kind of movie. Like this is you know, I'm getting on a level that I didn't really expect to be getting onto, and just like, so the violence is so realistic that it's like unsettling, and also the fact that where I didn't really know what this was about, and I had heard rumblings when this got selected. Like, I know Colton had said, he's like, oh, well, you know, like, I don't know if I'd really consider this a horror movie more so than like a really violent thriller or whatever. But I still didn't clue in that. I was like, you know, is there going to be like something supernatural in this, or like, what are these like horror aspects of it going to be into? But yeah, that opening's really great. And like when we're introduced to like Kim Soo-hyun, who's like our kind of protagonist in this, played by Lee Byung-hun. I thought it was really cool, because I like when they first show him and he's like at work talking to her on the phone, I was like, oh, like I kind of I was like, this guy is like definitely like a heartthrob type guy. Mm-hmm. And when I looked it up, like he's like apparently like a model and a singer, and like he's very well known, and I was like, okay. And then as it went, I thought it was kind of funny, because I kept being like, oh, is this kind of going to be like The Punisher? Like, are we going to go on these like The Punisher beats where it's like, oh, you know, you killed my family, so I'm taking out bad guys? Because I did not expect this to be him attacking the same guy over and over again.
Yeah. It's like The Crow, but, you know, keep it going.
Yeah.
It's like The Crow Groundhog Day edition.
Oh my God. I love that. That's
right,
that's a Letterboxd review right there.
I'm literally on Letterboxd typing that right now.
But Rowan, you just said, you know, expecting kind of supernatural elements just from like the title, which is what I was expecting. But as soon as I was watching it and I met our villain, who I think is a very good villain, there's just something so evil and like sinister about him. Like, I just knew that, you know, there wasn't going to be any supernatural element. It was going to be this guy because he's horrible. Like the things that he does to women, and he makes little remarks about. He's basically an incel, right? Like he gets turned down, and he takes it out on women by like brutally, you know, assaulting them and killing them and dismembering them.
And not just
really
women,
brutally.
like also obviously we get the scene where he like tries to kidnap like the schoolgirl and like rape like an underage schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Like, just a real piece of shit, real
Real
monster.
dirtbag.
I will say, like, I think other than Cold Open, my first note was, the scene where we're finding out that the fiance's murdered and the police are, like, investigating the area or whatever. But before that, the kid that finds the bag.
Oh my God.
And I had a question for you guys. I was curious, how long could you hold an ear in your hand till you realized it was an ear? Because I felt like he held it a little too long. I was like, I feel immediately you would know it was an ear.
And there was no screaming.
I think he thought, this is my chance to hold an ear without being weird, so I'm going to take an extra beat or two and then go, oh God, what is this?
That you saying the kid was a real sicko is what you're trying to say.
Oh,
here.
1,000%. That there's no way that kid is going to grow up and be so highly disturbed.
Trauma.
I just know what I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting because, you were talking, Mike, and I also really liked how this was filmed. And, it kind of reminded me of, obviously, when this comes out, our episode on Altered States will be out, and I talked about that I watched Emily Perez, and this reminded me of how Emily Perez is shot. Like, this really had this, like, soap opera feel, I felt to it. Like, it was, not only was the story very operatic, I thought, but, like, it seemed to me like it was just, like, a very interesting way to film everything. Like, everything was, like, very exaggerated. Like, it would almost hang on to stuff too long. Like, I was thinking about when the police are looking at that area, like, that scene is so long, and we're holding on to, like, reaction shots from people for a long time that just kind of gives us interesting vibe. In that scene, I will say, when they discover the head in the water, I thought that scene was so beautiful. Like, it was so awesome. Like, the head turning in the water and then the hair just, like, perfectly, going off of her face. And it just, like, really, like, relishing in the violence and, like, the brutality of it all.
Yeah, I love that shot. It's one of my favorites. And it's really spooky, too, because it so slowly, turns underwater. And for a minute, I'm just, like, wondering if the eyes are going to open. Like, it's just so spooky. And
she starts to scream.
Yeah. And there's so many people there, like, looking around.
Oh, my God. I was like, why is there, like, 500 people in this tiny spot? Like, pause.
Really?
Spread out. Everybody wants to be the hero who finds the, like, body or whatever. Oh, yeah. Not that they're going to find the body.
The body, like, before she's dismembered and before she's even dead, when she's wrapped in plastic naked, is a really beautiful scene. And then again, the dismembering is really graphic, but also you have to watch it, and it's done in a really kind of elegant way.
Yeah, this doesn't, like, shy away at all from, like, any, like, depravity of what's going on. Like, it lets you linger in it. It lets you fully see it. Like, we're seeing, like, once he's dismembering her at the beginning there, like, we see the head is off. Like, we see pretty much everything past the shoulder is, taken away. Like, I thought it was an interesting feeling because at first, I think when we're used to being approached by that, especially like in American cinema, something like that would be played off almost kind of silly and campy, where, there's like body parts everywhere, but, like, it's just kind of silly. And where this is just like, it's like the tone isn't silly at all. It's like super serious. And I just think as like an Americanized audience, it's just interesting, like, how not used to that. At least I am, even, all the shit I watch, that you're like, oh yeah, like, that's when you're like, this is like something totally, totally different.
It could have been done in a really schlocky way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because it's so elegantly filmed, like Jill said, that it just, like, completely subverts the schlock, which is, I think, exactly kind of what you're leaning into there. Like, it's not campy, it's not schlocky, it's not even like that exploitative, which is weird because it is so, like, heavy on the brutality and the gore and the details and the dismemberment.
And then, like, some of my other notes on this, like I said, I didn't really know where it was going. Obviously, he's, like, trying to figure out who murdered his fiance, and a lot of family stuff going on here. Awkward, he like kind of works, it seems, you know, he like works pretty closely with the father, but like, yeah, he's just beating the shit out of guys that have nothing to do with it, but they're like obviously wanted for, I'm assuming, like, you know, like murdering women or like sexual violence, stuff like that. I'm assuming you also, Mike, I watched this on Tubi.
Yes, yeah.
But like sometimes it would tell you what the signage would say in English, and then sometimes it wouldn't. So like when they showed the kind of wanted posters or whatever in the police station, like it didn't say what it said. So I was like, okay, I just know this guy has his picture hanging up in a police office. But I just thought it was interesting because, like I said, I was like, okay, is this whole movie just gonna be him like murdering guys till he finds the right guy or beating them up? And then that first just gives the shot to the balls with that wrench, just bloodies that guy's balls. I felt it. I was oof. I was like, this is brutal. I love that whole scene where the guy's just like jerking off and then his computer turns off and didn't even let him. And
he's like,
finish.
"Oh God, I gotta wipe the like jergens off my hand." It's like, God damn it, I gotta stand up.
Well, I also thought that was gonna happen too. Not that, but yeah, the movie they found they found the killer real quick, right? And
which was surprising, yeah.
Yeah, and what follows is just like a perpetual cycle of tormenting this guy, and when you think it's over, it's not. It's relentless.
Well, and I think it's interesting that, you know, now that we're doing the episode, I read the synopsis and the taglines and stuff, like I think it was interesting because when I was watching it, as this goes on, and, you know, like you said, yeah, like basically every time this guy tries to, you know, kidnap, attack a woman, rape a woman, this guy shows up because he's got a tracker and a microphone on him and he knows where he is at all times. And yeah, it was just so interesting because I did have the feeling of, you know, I was thinking about, I saw the devil and stuff, and I'm thinking like how evil this villain is. But then I'm like, you know, the devil might actually be our protagonist here, like, because it's not even just revenge. It's like at some point this guy's like relishing in like committing all this violence and thinking of like these elaborate things. And, you know, basically every time he attacks this guy, he breaks like his arm or his hand or his leg, or that scene where he cuts his like Achilles or whatever.
Achilles, yeah.
That was sick.
Oh my God.
Okay. And like to that point, you know, it's interesting because you're right. It does become more of a like, it's not revenge anymore. It's not for it wasn't his wife. Were they
Fiance,
engaged or his girlfriend or whatever? Yeah. It's then something that's just for him to take sadistic pleasure in, but also the fact that like it's hypocritical because in doing this, there's like one or two people who he saves in quotation marks, but because of him, so many other people like die and like people get like murdered and raped and like that, like the schoolgirl. I thought he was going to swoop in, like she's already complete, like, you know, traumatized by the time he, you know, shows up, and I'm just like, God damn, dude, like,
just kill him. Be done
how
with
many?
it.
Yeah, how many people, innocent people, do you need to like put through the fucking meat grinder so you can get your rocks off? Like, truly.
I just thought it was such a cool touch. Like, I love that our villain, like, the job of having the like after school bus ride program, like, I thought that was such a cool job for like kind of this like serial killer murderer guy. It'll make me really suspicious. I live by a university and they have like the, you know, the safe drive vans that drive drunk kids everywhere. So now I'm gonna have to look real hard when it passes my house, be like, is this guy a serial killer or what's going on here? Is he just kidnapping?
You're like, I
kids?
might need to do a fucking like police sketch of this van or whatever.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, am I gonna have to knock him out and put a tracker into his throat and and enact my revenge. And I thought that what's so interesting is like the disgusting brutality of like the violence that like Kun Chao is like, you know, committing on these women. It's so interesting because you almost feel bad, because I found like a lot of it, I was like laughing, like when our protagonist shows up and just starts kicking the shit out of them every time. And I'm like, it's like such a weird dynamic, but it works. Because I was like, you know, I brought up Punisher before, but I was like, it's very like comic booky, where it's just like, you know, he's committing these horrific acts, and then this guy shows up and like hits him in the head with a fire extinguisher, and like just kind of does like these ridiculous, like throwing him into everything. And I'm just like, it's just like this like beat him up, punch him up, like, you know, hero villain violence going on, which I thought worked well as like kind of a release valve for the intensity of what's going on. Yeah. Because like when he goes to the hospital and, you know, he ends up like sexually assaulting, raping the receptionist or whatever. Like I thought that was really hard to watch.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, and then that valve's kind of lifted where he, like, turns around and gets hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. And then, you know, then to me, I'm like, oh, it's, like, almost this, like, Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner thing.
Oh, yeah, it's 100%. I was like, this is a Looney Tunes cartoon sometimes.
But, you know, like, with the violence, like, there's some, like, really great scenes. Like, I thought the scene where he's, like, all beat to shit and he's on the side of the road, and then the other taxi cab picks him up.
Yeah.
And he has the fight scene in with like stabbing the two guys.
Yeah.
I thought that was shot so well and it looks so amazing.
Me too.
Yeah. Like it was just really, really well done. And I was like, this is just like expert filmmaking, because I would imagine that's super hard to shoot in such a confined area, and it was intense. Like I didn't know what was going on, because
that spurting blood was beautiful.
Yes. And like trying to drive,
not to sound psychopathic. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that scene. It was really well done, and just like another testament to the caliber of gore that you're getting in this movie.
And I also thought the music was kind of banging in this. Like,
I knew you were going to say that, because it was.
Yeah, I thought the music was really great in this, which I don't know why, but like I always kind of, maybe it's just not my style. Like, you know, like I'm not like big on a lot of like Korean music or anything like that I've ever heard.
It was very melodramatic.
Yeah, which I think really fed into that like soap opera, like that operatic kind of feel to this all. I will say I could feel the length in this, and I know, you know, if Colton was here, he'd say that's because you watched it on Tubi. Okay.
But it's free on Tubi.
It is free on Tubi.
I also watched it on Tubi.
But even without the ads, like this is 2.5 hours long, and I will say that it, like towards the end of the middle to the third act, I was kind of like, all right, like I get he's beating this guy up all the time and doing all these things, but I'm just like, I feel like we could have cut a little bit, and I could have got like the same ideas, the same brutality, the same story. They just kind of like really relished it out. Yeah, that was kind of really my big complaint of it, was the length.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, I'm a lifelong, you know, movie buff. I'm not just going to like not watch something because it's long, but I'm also kind of at an age and a point in my life where I get dragged out a lot, and I have to be more selective with squeezing as much as I can into the little free time I have, like between working and then commuting, and, you know, and I walk. So like if I, you know, have to go to the store, that just takes twice as long. And, you know, so and I find my attention span also is like rotting a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do sometimes go like, and just like breathe in a little bit whenever I see a running time that's like over 2 hours. And I did feel it a bit in this, and I know it's deliberate. Obviously it's supposed to be like relentless, and there's acts in it. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens, right? Yeah. But yeah, I did feel, I remember like as soon as the credits rolled, I was like, okay, thinking about the movie, but then I was like, X, Y, and Z could definitely have been either trimmed down or removed altogether, and it would not have altered my enjoyment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I don't want to just be like, oh, trim it down because it's long. But I do think that sometimes there's a little bit of extra fat on a movie that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
You know, it's bad because me and Mike, we never complain about length. Haha.
Or girth.
Or girth. But yeah, this one's just a bit long. And like you said, you know, it's a big ask of people nowadays to sit down and watch a length of something that is just relentless. And for me, it gives me a lot of anxiety. That's why like thriller kind of horror is probably one of my least favorite subgenres of horror. It does a number on me. Like I get exhausted from watching it. It just makes me nervous, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. And it's kind of funny, you know, we talk about the length, and then as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you know, it's just funny how we relate different kinds of movies and the length of being good and bad, where I'm like, 2.5 hours. I'm like, this is literally just the length of a Marvel movie that the entire world goes and sees, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. When, you know, they could be watching something awesome like this. But like you said, it's the relentlessness that's, you know, brutal.
Also, to be fair, I say the same thing about Marvel movies.
Yeah,
I'm like, those things should be 85 minutes.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, you brought it up, Jill, so maybe this will be a good time to talk. But I was interested to talk about, you know, as I said, you know, Colton brought up the question when this was picked about, you know, is this actually a horror movie? Like, would you consider this a horror movie? You know, if you bought this and you had your movies all organized in genres, is this going in your horror genre?
Yeah. I mean, you've got a killer and you have a lot of gore and just like blood. To me, that's an element of horror, even if it's on, you know, the thriller side. But there's plenty of movies out there like that are still considered horror.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's you could also, like, something can be multiple genres at once. I mean, is it an action movie? Absolutely. You know, it reminds me a lot of like something like The Raid, right? Where he's just like tearing through people for however long that movie is, like 90 minutes or 100 minutes. But this is like a different type of violence, right? That's more of a like martial artsy kind of physical violence. And this is very much a sharp, bleeding, weapons, dismemberment violence. Yeah. And I think it kind of is it kind of reminds me of like, say, like Silence of the Lambs being a horror movie that's also more of a thriller, but also a horror because, you know what I mean? And it's like, it just straddles a line. And I think genre is mostly something that we impose on it anyway. So
yeah, that was my comparison when I was thinking about it, was Silence of the Lambs. I was like, you know, usually as horror fans, we kind of hold that one. We're like, oh yeah, you know, that can come over here into horror. So I'm like,
exactly.
I'm like, you know, that psychological thriller always towing that line. But
also, since you bring up Silence of the Lambs, we have cannibalism in this movie, so 100%.
Oh, I was yeah. So I was gonna get into it. So the actor Choi Moo-seon, who plays Taeju, my favorite part of this entire.
Oh my God.
I thought he was fantastic.
Carried, yeah.
Yeah, like the camp I thought he had, but it worked. It didn't spoil it. But yeah, is this like psychotic cannibal that, you know, our antagonist knows, because we find out that they were part of like a militia or something. So they kind of have like this like militarized background that I think makes it a little more sense, because, you know, you're trying to figure out with Kun-Shul, like, you know, like how he's this violent, but he never gets caught. He's very sneaky. Like, how does he get out of these situations? And so then when you're like, oh, okay, this militia, like they kind of have this background. But I thought this guy was great. And, you know, they kind of explained that he's crazy because he eats human meat, which I don't know if that's true. Maybe I don't
It's
know.
like rumors of that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to test it out. We'll do something. We'll film one of us just eating human meat for a long time.
Not me.
No.
You know, they're like the January 6th people, but
yeah,
they're out now.
Korean cannibal version. Yeah, exactly. This is you're going to be seeing a lot more of this in real life.
Yeah, I thought this was such a good, like, reveal, because at first I thought they were implying that he was eating the dogs. Like, because they kind of show him tending to the dogs, and then it immediately goes into a shot of, like, him just devouring meat, and I'm like, oh, like, is he eating dogs? Like, is that... And you know, like the... Kenshul, like, makes the comment, he's like, oh, like, eating that's, like, making you crazy, and then we find out, you know, how brutal it is, and they you know, this isn't even their house. They just basically broke into this house and are eating the family. But yeah, I thought he was awesome. And even the death where our main guy just, like, breaks open his jaw, essentially.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. I thought, like, that he was my favorite part of the movie, by far.
So gnarly and not upsetting, unsettling. And yes, upsetting.
I also enjoyed, I liked, one of the quotes in the film, which I thought was very fitting for this film, was when they were talking about revenge and stuff, and they said revenge is for the movies. I was like, what a great, like, line, a little wink as you're making this, like, 2.5 hour long brutal revenge movie. Yeah, just fantastic. I did have a pretty serious question. I was curious, though, our antagonist there. Is what is up with his love, really both of these guys, what's up with their love of driving on the wrong side of the road? It seems like almost every scene these guys are driving, they're driving on the wrong side of the road, like, against traffic, where I'm like, I feel like you don't need to. Like, they're just driving on the wrong side of the road for the fun of it. I was just like, this seems like psychotic behavior.
Mike is Googling this now, I can tell. I see it.
I'm trying to.
I see tabs opening from, like, the light. Let us know.
It's mostly Kim Soo Hyun, our main protagonist, that is always driving the wrong way. Like, he's turning the car around, but I'm like, instead of just, like, turning off a street, going onto another street, he's just... Anything that happens in the movie, he's like, I have to drive the opposite direction in the traffic. And I'm just thinking, I don't know, man, this seems pretty dangerous. Like, you're going to kill a lot of other people. Just psychotic behavior. Psychotic.
Mike is still looking for it.
I'm still looking. I'm like, okay, so they drive on the right side of the road. Now I'm, like, going down. I know what you're saying, but I'm, like, going down a, like, wormhole of, wait, what side of the road do they drive on? I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. They're not like...
You just mean they're driving against traffic, which is fine.
He was always
I
driving...
understand what you're saying,
always driving against traffic and stuff, so...
Listen, it's called resisting. Resisting the rules of the road.
The other kind of issue I had with this, which I think would also cut some of the time in the movie, was I felt like a lot of the relationships they were trying to get us to relate to with, like, Kim Soo Hyun and, like, you know, his superior, like his boss and his fiance's father, the police chief, and all this stuff. Like, I didn't really feel like they built that very well.
Yeah.
No, that was some of the fat that could have been trimmed to me.
Yeah, because, like, you know, just kind of a passing mention probably would have worked for me, especially where I just felt like you dedicated some of this time, but not enough time for it to be impactful.
Okay, but speaking of them and people that... Okay, so there was fat that could have been trimmed, but there was also some stuff that I think could have been pushed more, and it is this. Did anybody else pick up on a lot of sexual tension between him and the sister?
Oh my god.
I think the sister wanted him so fucking bad. She already seemed glad that her sister was dead because she's like, now I could move in on this man. Was it just me? I'm like, honestly, this queen needs to be in more of the movie. And, like, also maybe because I, you know, looked away a couple times, or, like, I was like, oh, I gotta run and refill my water or whatever. And I'm like, did I miss something? Because did they ever, like, find out what happened to her? Because he took her, and then I probably did miss it when I got up to refill my water. I just assumed she was dead, but I don't.
I'm pretty sure
know if, like, it
dead.
showed it very quickly.
They showed a quick shot of her body wrapped in plastic, like.
Oh, okay, yeah. It must have been, like, just when I got up to, like.
It was, like, laying in the middle of a side street, and, like, people were surrounding it, and then that's all they didn't mention it or anything to our like main guy or anything. So,
Okay.
but Mike, you're not crazy. I also thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought she was interested in him. I wasn't so sure if he was interested in her back. But
I thought they were going to get together by the end of it.
what's crazy though is that we're talking about like how he kind of, drew all this out for way too long. Like now people closer to him are dying because he just won't kill this dude.
They talk about it in the film. Like, he just loves playing with his food, playing with the prey. And, he played with it too long and then, fucked around and found out, essentially, that,
It's the Laurie Strode effect.
So, I mean, I feel like it deserves us to talk a little bit. Do we want to talk about, like, kind of the ending, that end kill of our antagonist, and just, like, brutal.
Oh my god, like... Yes, because this was another... I mean, listen, I know this is the point, but I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like, do you have to traumatize another bunch of people, including a fucking child? Like, just do it.
Well, and this is where I really, like I said, when I was thinking about the title of the film, and, I'm like, okay, like, we're finally killing the devil. And then I'm like, wait a second, is he the devil? Or is it our protagonist who, like you said, is essentially... not only getting revenge on him by torturing and murdering him, but also making sure that this like generational trauma is now in his family and has to be like passed along. And I'm just like, that might be just as bad as anything this guy's also done. Like, I feel like they might be in the same camp now.
They both saw the devil.
Oh, absolutely. And I kept thinking the whole movie about how, okay, so you have this personal vendetta that you need to enact that is sending shockwaves among all these other people. And now all of these other people, I just kept thinking, like, what if this is like an epidemic that catches of like revenge, and people just like start kind of like going into these crazy violent frenzies, and like they all start coming to look for him because he's involved, and I'm just like, the repercussions, it's like the waves of like
a revenge version of the sadness.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that scene's brutal, just wild. That guillotine setup is like Saw-esque. I was like, Jigsaw did he consult Jigsaw on this? Is he the new Jigsaw? What's going on here?
Korean Jigsaw.
Oh, that's way too basic for Jigsaw. Please. I did write a note while that was going on, though, because of course they did elongate that scene, and I was sitting there and I was literally saying out loud, I was like, if they fucking cut away, and like if there's no payoff to this, if it's like a cutaway shot to like them coming in and like you just hear it or whatever, I'm gonna fucking lose it, and I'm gonna give it like -1 star.
Brutal.
So, spoiler alert, I was very glad when the ending actually did pay off and they didn't cut away from it. Not to sound like a psychopath, but I was like, if I have to watch the like brutal torture of like particularly like all these women and stuff, and then I don't get the payoff of seeing this guy's head get lopped off.
Yeah, fuck
like,
off then.
I'm gonna lose my mind, yeah. So thank you for at least giving us payoff to that whole setup.
You were worried you were going to get the equivalent of when he unplugged the guy's computer and didn't get to finish.
Yeah. It's like, it's like we're there with our metaphorical Jergens still on our hands, having to wipe it off in our pants.
I found this on a YouTube video today. It was Zelda Williams and Diablo Cody sharing their like top 4 movies, and Diablo Cody had this movie, I Saw the Devil, as one of hers. So I thought that was very interesting, and she's a queen of taste. Cool. So yeah,
this makes so much sense because when you look it up on Letterboxd, it'll have a like tab that says related comment, or related content. And the related content, it was like Diablo Cody and Zelda Williams talking about their favorite movies.
That must be the video.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And I was like, I didn't click on it, but I was like, what? I was like, I don't understand why this is just randomly showing.
Yeah.
I Saw the Devil. But yeah, now it makes sense.
I think she said something like she wished she could pick the director's brain for like a lot of the scenes and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, because like we said, the direction in this is fantastic. Like so many of these scenes are shot so well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we're comfortable, let's land the plane on this one and get into the rating. If you're new to our program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Mike, I think you were having a little more fun with all the violence. You're getting a little randy over there.
How dare you?
So, what would you rate 2010's I Saw the Devil?
Okay, so I am going to give it a yay. So while I was watching it, I kept going back and forth. Overall, I really enjoyed it, I have to say. And I was not expecting to enjoy it. I will say that as well. Because first of all, I have a bit of a problem with oh, my wife movies. Oh my God, yes, I've seen this a million times. Oh, you killed my wife. Now I'm going for revenge. Obviously, they took this and then, twisted it and made it a whole other type of movie. But I literally just... Again, I went into a blind, so I had no idea. So when I kind of got the setup of this, I was like, fuck my life. Fuck this. So I got over that, but also it is one of my annoying, John Wick, for example.
Yeah.
My friend made me watch that during COVID. I had never seen any of them before.
Be careful where you're treading right now.
So sorry.
No. Listen. I literally said to him, I'm gonna kill you for making me watch a fucking, oh, my wife, I gotta get revenge movie. And he's like, no, you don't understand. And then at the end, I was like, oh my God, it was about a dog. Okay, this is fine. So it sort of lost a couple of points just because that was still the thrust of the movie, and that it was the two dudes having this dance the whole movie, and I'm just like, okay, I need more women to be in it that aren't just literal bodies to get hacked up, I need my Emily Jessup. I need that center in there. So it did lose a little bit, just that knocked it down just a little notch. And the length.
Yeah.
Again, I understand what he was doing here, and I just personally, it could have used a bit of tweaking and editing. And if they had taken 20 minutes off of it, I think it would have been fine. And still been relentless and still pushed. But it was literally at one point I was like, oh, the movie's over and I need to get up and pee. And I paused it and realized that there was a whole regular movie length left to the movie. I was like, oh, there's an hour and 35 minutes left. I thought it was 20 minutes. I was like, okay, I'm going to pause now and pee because I don't want to get up during the final act. And I was like, oh, there's still a whole movie left. Okay, cool. But other than that, I did really enjoy it. I thought it was beautifully shot. I loved that it was both really dark at times and really cartoonishly over the top. Like I said, I was it's Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, but also more importantly, Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. Because I really thought that dude was very Elmer Fudd coded. The way that he had to sift through his own diarrhea when he finally figured it out. You know what I mean? I just thought it was so
Elmer Fudd, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a yay. I like I said, about 45 minutes into it, I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this because I don't like this genre of movie generally. And I do have problems with it, but I think that it was overall extremely well done, and I'm surprised by how much I like it. So yeah, Jill, what are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, period. I would just be echoing everything you just said because that's how I feel. More women. Less length, please, because it's quite long, and I also had the jump scare pausing this movie and then realize how much is left to it when I thought it was over.
She likes it long, not that long.
Not that long. It's a bit extreme, and it reminds.
Jill is a girth girl, a goth girth girl.
God help me, but it reminded me of when we reviewed Inside. I still I had the same kind of issue with that. It's that it's long and it's the same thing kind of over and over. It gives me a lot of anxiety. And, it's not my brand of fun, but the upside of this movie is that it's so gorgeous. Like, it puts the gore in gorgeous because it's so bloody. I never talked about the scene where he's like cleaning up the blood and you see the water turn red when he's like cleaning the floor, and just like seeing the cleanup and like the labor that goes into this, and yet he's still like willing to do all of that for whatever sick reason. I don't know.
You're commending him for this.
I'm not commending him. I'm just saying like it's a lot of work, man.
She's saying she appreciates the labor.
I appreciate the labor of hacking up bodies. But yeah, I love the bodies in the plastic. Very aesthetic. So yeah, it's going to be a yay from me as well. Rowan, what say you?
Yeah, I think all three of us are on the same page with this. I'm going to give it a yay also. I really enjoyed this. I always go into these not knowing what it's going to be like. And like I said, it's just really a blind spot where I usually go into like these Korean horror films, Japanese horror films, and I'm always like, I'm not really into the genre. But then for some reason, I think everyone I've ever seen, I'm like, I love this. This is like my favorite movie now. And I need to just dive in and not be so biased against it for no reason. But yeah, I thought other than like you guys said, the length, it was pretty tedious. There was some fat that could be trimmed. But other than that, like, I love the way it was shot. I love the story. I love the goriness. I love the tension and the disbelief, but also having that kind of silly release valve, like we said, that kind of silly Wile E. Coyote stuff, almost cartoonish, just, to release some of that pressure building up. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a yay. So 3 yays. I think that's fantastic. James, way to go. Just like we keep saying, people on Patreon picking bangers most times. I think most people pick bangers. Unless they hate us and they're just trying to get us to watch something terrible. But with that, if you are not following us on social media, you can do so at It's Lace Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, Tumblr, TikTok, Slasher, Bluesky, Threads, Letterboxd, YouTube. If there's any sort of social media thing, you can do so. So follow us at It's Lace Podcast. You can also go to Spotify and go to the It's Lace Podcast horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, go to any of those social media I just mentioned. Go to the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music to iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. And you know what? There was some banner music in this, so I'll probably try to find something from this to put on there. So yeah, go follow the playlist and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And that will be everything. As always, thank you so much, James, for being a Horror Hound supporter on Patreon. Hopefully, more people listening to this, if you enjoy it, support us financially. All that money goes into the podcast. It goes into hosting, like all the fees for hosting and all that good stuff. Sometimes we do things like buy Mike a new microphone so you don't have to listen to terrible audio, and just it all goes back. We're not making enough money to spend it on drugs and prostitutes or anything. So sadly, Jill's disappointed about that, but someday support us so her dreams can come true. But yeah,
DM her.
Yeah. We will be back with another one very soon, I'm sure. So thank you for all the support, and as always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Thanks for everything. It's Mike.
Bye, it's Jill.
See you later.